My girlfriend dumped me after meeting my parents, saying, "Your family isn't classy enough for me to introduce to my friends." Then dated a rich guy not knowing I owned an $87 million company. 6 months ago, I thought I had everything under control. I was 28 years old, had been dating Isabella Romano for almost 2 years, and I truly believed we had a future together. Isabella came from a wealthy family for generations, with a trust fund that could buy a small country and social connections that opened doors I did not even know existed. I am Marco Valadetti, son of Antonio Benedetti, who has been fixing cars in Brooklyn for 30 years, and Maria Valladetti, who has been cleaning houses on the Upper East Side of Manhattan for the same amount of time. But here is the thing, I never hid that from Isabella. From day one, I was honest about my background. We met at a tech conference in Silicon Valley. I was there presenting my cloud synchronization solutions to potential investors. Isabella was with her friends from the Stanford MBA, networking and playing the role of the sophisticated lady. When she approached me after my presentation, I was honestly dazzled. She was beautiful, with long, dark hair, all designer clothes, and a confidence that comes from never having had to worry about money. Our first conversation lasted 3 hours. She seemed genuinely interested in my company, asked intelligent questions about our cloud infrastructure technology, and did not bat an eye when I mentioned I grew up in Brooklyn. We exchanged numbers, and by the end of that week, we were inseparable. For almost 2 years, everything was perfect. Isabella would visit my small apartment in Queens, and I would spend weekends at her family's mansion in the Hamptons. She never complained about the subway rides or my secondhand furniture. When she briefly met my parents at a coffee shop 6 months into our relationship, she was polite and charming. My mom, Maria, immediately loved her, and even my dad, Antonio, normally skeptical, admitted she seemed like a good person. But there was always this underlying tension I could not quite identify. Isabella's friends were polite to me, but I could feel the condescension, the way they asked me what I did for a living with that particular tone, as if they expected me to say I was still finding my way. When I explained Cloud Sync, how we were revolutionizing data management for medium-sized businesses, they would nod and change the subject to talk about their latest vacation in Monaco or a friend's wedding in Tuscany. Isabella's parents, Yeppy and Francesca Romano, were a completely different story. I had met them a few times at family gatherings, and although they were not openly hostile, Yeppy had this way of looking at me as if I were a temporary phase his daughter was going through. Francesca would smile politely and ask superficial questions about my computer business before changing the subject to discuss Isabella's trust fund investments or her latest acquisition for Romano Holdings, the real estate empire. Despite all this, I was planning to propose to her. I had already picked out the ring, nothing too flashy because I knew Isabella's style, but something significant, a vintage piece I found in Little Italy that reminded me of her grandmother's engagement ring she had shown me in old family photos. Then came the dinner that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in November. Isabella had been hinting for months that she wanted to meet my parents properly, not just the brief encounter at the coffee shop. She wanted to see where I grew up, to better understand my roots. I was excited. Finally, I thought, you want to be a part of my world for real. I planned a casual dinner at my childhood home in Bensonhurst, nothing extravagant, just my mother's famous lasagna, some good wine, and quality time. I warned Isabella it would be different from what she was used to, but she insisted she was excited. My parents went all out. My mom, Maria, spent the whole day cooking. She made her lasagna from scratch, garlic bread, and a pesto, everything. My dad, Antonio, took the afternoon off from the shop, something he never does, to help prepare and make sure everything was perfect. They were so excited to spend real time with the woman their son was seriously involved with. When Isabella arrived, she looked as stunning as ever, but I noticed she seemed tense. She kept checking her phone and looking around our modest 2-bedroom house, as if she were taking inventory. Anyway, the dinner started well. My parents were warm and welcoming, asking her about her work, her family, sharing stories about my childhood. My dad told his favorite story about teaching me to change oil when I was 12, how I ended up so covered in grease that my mom made me shower twice. My mom showed Isabella photo albums, including the embarrassing high school pictures that all parents love to share. Isabella laughed at all the right moments, praised the food, and seemed to be enjoying herself. But I could feel that something was not right. She kept evading when my parents asked her about her family's business, giving vague answers about investments and real estate. When my mom mentioned how proud she was of her house cleaning clients, how some families had become an extension of the family for her, Isabella's smile became forced. The breaking point came when my dad mentioned a client whose luxury car he had been repairing. "You know, Marco," he said, wiping sauce from his beard. "Mrs. Peterson's Maserati had the same problem you helped me diagnose last month. That engineering degree of yours comes in handy even at the shop." He was beaming with pride, as he always did when he talked about how my education complemented his practical experience. But I saw Isabella's face change. Something cold flashed in her eyes. The evening ended cordially. Isabella thanked my parents for dinner, praised my mother's cooking, and we said our goodbyes. But during the drive back to Manhattan, she was unusually quiet. "Everything okay?" I asked while we were in traffic on the BQE. "Fine," she replied, but her tone said otherwise. It was not until we got to her apartment that she finally expressed what she was thinking. We were in her impeccable living room, the one with the Italian marble coffee table and the original Monet on the wall, when she turned to me with an expression I had never seen before. "Marco, we need to talk." Those 4 words. Every man knows that those 4 words mean your world is about to end. "I have been thinking a lot about us lately," she continued, walking towards her floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "About our future, about whether we are really compatible in the long run." "What do you mean?" I asked, although something inside me already knew where this was going. She turned to me, and her expression was colder than I had ever seen it. "Tonight really opened my eyes. I thought you came from a good family, Marco. I mean, I knew your parents were not rich, but I assumed they were at least educated professionals." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. "Isabella, what are you talking about? My parents are incredible people. They work very hard to give me opportunities they never had. Your father fixes cars, Marco. Your mother cleans houses." She said it as if she were pointing out a fundamental character flaw. "I cannot introduce you to my social circle knowing that. Do you understand what that would do to my reputation, to my family's reputation?" I looked at her, trying to process what I was hearing. This was the woman I had been planning to marry, the woman who had been in my life for 2 years, who had met my parents before and had never said a word. "Are you serious right now?" I managed to ask. "Completely serious. I come from a certain world, Marco. My friends, my family, our business partners, they have expectations. I cannot show up at charity galas and board meetings with someone whose father has grease under his fingernails. My father is one of the most honest and hardworking men you will ever meet. My mother has helped raise half the children on the Upper East Side, while their real parents were too busy with their careers to notice. They are incredible people. I am sure they are adorable," Isabella said dismissively. "But adorable does not change the fact that they are blue-collar workers. I need someone who can move in my world without having to apologize for their background." The worst part was not just what she was saying, it was how calm she was saying it, as if she were talking about the weather or what to order for lunch. There was no emotion, no acknowledgement that she was destroying something that had mattered to both of us. "So that is it?" I asked. 2 years and you throw it all away because my parents work for a living?" "I am not throwing anything away. I am being realistic about what works and what does not. We come from different worlds, Marco. I thought maybe we could bridge that gap, but tonight it became clear that we cannot." I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. I was too hurt and angry to continue the conversation without saying something I would regret. "Marco, wait," she called after me. I turned, hoping that maybe she would realize how terrible she sounded, that she would want to take it back. "I hope we can still be friends," she said instead. I walked out without another word. The following weeks were brutal. Isabella did not just leave me. She completely erased me from her life. Mutual friends stopped inviting me to parties where she might be present. I heard through rumors that she was already dating someone new, Alessandro Candy, heir to a hotel fortune, someone whose pedigree met her demanding standards. But here is what Isabella did not know about me. I had been building cloud sync solutions for 3 years before I met her. What started as a side project while I was working as a software engineer had grown into something significant. We had 2 employees, contracts with 43 companies, and our revenue was increasing every quarter. More importantly, we were in acquisition talks with several major players in the tech industry. I kept the details private because I did not want to create false hopes, not even my own, until the deals were signed. Isabella knew I had a startup, but she never understood the scope of what we were building. 3 weeks after our breakup, Tech Dynamic Corporation made an offer to acquire CloudSync for $87 million. Tech Dynamic was not just any tech company. They were a major player in enterprise software, with offices in 12 countries and annual revenues in the billions. More relevant to my personal situation, they had been aggressively acquiring small companies to expand their cloud services division. The acquisition meant that CloudSync would become the new cloud infrastructure department of Tech Dynamics, and I would take over as regional director of cloud services for the Northeast. It was the type of position that came with a lot of money, a lot of responsibility, and a lot of respect in the industry. But best of all, one of Tech Dynamics' subsidiaries was Romano Holdings Real Estate. Jeppy Romano, Isabella's father, had sold his company to Tech Dynamics 2 years earlier as part of their expansion into commercial real estate management. He had stayed on as regional director of real estate operations, thinking he was set for life with his golden deal. What he did not anticipate was Tech Dynamics' restructuring plan. As part of the acquisition of CloudSync, they were consolidating their regional operations. JPI's real estate division would be integrated into my cloud services department. Effective immediately, Jeppy Romano, the man who looked at me as if I were temporary help next to his daughter, would report directly to me. The irony was so perfect. I felt as if the universe were correcting some cosmic injustice. My first day as regional director was a Monday in March. I walked into the Manhattan headquarters of Tech Dynamics dressed in a tailored suit, carrying a leather briefcase, and knowing that everything in my life had changed overnight. The executive conference room was packed for my introductory meeting. Department heads, regional managers, team leaders, including Jeppy Romano, who was sitting at the end of the table reviewing documents. When I walked in, Jeppy looked up casually, then did a double take that was visible from across the room. His face went through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds: confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, something that looked like fear. "Good morning, everyone," I began, standing at the head of the table. "I am Marco Valadetti, your new Regional Director of Cloud Services. I am excited to work with all of you to integrate our operations and take the Northeast Division of Tech Dynamics to the next level." Jeppy's face had turned completely pale. He kept looking at his documents, then back at me, as if he could not quite process what was happening. I went around the table, introducing myself to each department head, outlining my experience and vision for our integrated operations. When I got to Jeppy, I extended my hand with a professional smile. "Mr. Romano, I look forward to working together. I believe we met briefly a couple of times. I used to date your daughter, Isabella." His handshake was weak, and he could barely make eye contact. Yes, of course, Marco. This is unexpected. Life has a funny way of working out, does it not? The meeting continued with me outlining the new reporting structure, project timelines, and performance expectations. Jeppy sat there as if he were witnessing his own execution. Every time I mentioned accountability, results, or leadership expectations, I saw him shrink further into his chair. After the meeting, Jeppy stayed behind while everyone else left. "Marco," he began, his voice uncertain. "I had no idea you were. I mean, Isabella never mentioned your company was." "Was what, Mr. Romano?" "Successful, profitable, worth almost 9 figures." He winced. "I think there may have been some misunderstandings." "There were no misunderstandings," I replied, gathering my papers. "Your daughter made her position very clear. She could not introduce me to your social circle because my father fixes cars and my mother cleans houses. She needed someone who could move in your world without having to make excuses." Jeppy looked like he wanted to crawl under the conference table. "Marco, you have to understand. Isabella is young. Sometimes she says things without thinking. She seemed pretty clear in her thinking to me. But do not worry, Mr. Romano. This is business, not personal. I expect the same level of professionalism from you that I expect from all my department heads. Your family relationships will not affect your performance evaluations as long as you meet your goals." He nodded quickly, probably relieved that I was not planning to fire him on the spot. "Oh, and Mr. Romano, my father still fixes cars, and my mother still cleans houses. The difference is that now my father owns 3 shops in Brooklyn and Queens, and my mother runs her own cleaning service with 12 employees. It turns out that when your son becomes a tech executive, You can afford to expand the family businesses. Yeppy's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I will see you at the department meeting on Thursday morning, I concluded, and walked out of the conference room. News travels fast in wealthy social circles. Within a week, everyone who mattered in Manhattan knew that Marco Veodetti, the guy Isabella Romano had left for being beneath her standards, was now her father's boss and one of the youngest regional directors in the history of Tech Dynamics. Isabella's first text message arrived 2 days after my promotion became public in the business journals. Marco, I heard about your new position. Congratulations. I always knew you were going to be successful. I hope you are well. I read it without replying. The second message came 3 days later. I keep thinking about us and wondering if I made a mistake. I miss what we had. I deleted the third message a week after that. My father mentioned, you work together now. He says, you are doing an amazing job. I am so proud of you. I deleted the messages. They kept coming. At first, they were casual congratulations, small talk, mentions of mutual friends. Then they became more personal. Isabella started reminiscing about our relationship, apologizing for how things ended, hinting that she had been hasty in her decision. I have been thinking about that dinner at your parents' house. Your mom's lasagna was incredible. I should have told her that night. I saw pictures of Lisa's wedding. Remember when we used to talk about what our wedding would be like? I miss you, Marco. I miss you. I did not reply to any of them, but I have to admit, there was a certain satisfaction in watching her desperation grow as the weeks went by. Meanwhile, at work, Yeppy was walking on eggshells around me. He was overly formal, extremely polite, and clearly terrified that I was going to take revenge on him for his daughter's behavior. The truth is, he was actually a competent manager when he was not being condescending, and I had no intention of sabotaging the department for personal reasons. But I did not go out of my way to make him feel comfortable either. During our weekly one-on-one meetings, Yeppy would try to make small talk, asking about my family or mentioning Isabella in what he probably thought were subtle ways. I kept every conversation strictly professional. How are the second quarter projections looking, Mr. Romano? Good, very good. The Manhattan portfolio is exceeding expectations by 12%. Marco, I hope you know that Isabella has been asking about you. That is excellent news about Manhattan. What about the developments in Brooklyn? Eventually, he got the message. 2 months into my new position, Isabella's text messages intensified. Marco, please, just call me back. I know I hurt you, but I want to fix things. I was wrong about everything. Your parents are wonderful people, and I was an idiot for saying otherwise. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Please, let's give us another chance. My friends keep asking why we are not together anymore. I do not know what to tell them because I do not have a good answer. The last message almost made me laugh. Her friends, the same ones who barely tolerated me when I was dating her, were probably now wondering why she let go of a tech executive with an 8-figure net worth. 3 months later, Isabella showed up at my office. I was in the middle of a budget review when my assistant buzzed me. Mr. Veodetti, there is an Isabella Romano here to see you. She says it is personal. I should have told my assistant to send her away. Instead, curiosity got the better of me. Send her in. Isabella walked into my office looking like she had just stepped out of a magazine. As always, designer dress, perfectly styled hair, expensive handbag. But there was something different about her demeanor, less confident, more insecure. Marco, she said, hovering near the door as if she were not sure if she was welcome. Isabella, this is unexpected. I gestured towards one of the chairs in front of my desk. Please, have a seat. She sat on the edge of the chair, clutching her handbag. I know you have been getting my messages. I have, and you have not replied to any of them. I have not. She took a shaky breath. I came here to apologize. Really, apologize, not just through a text message. What I said that night, about your parents, about your background, was terrible, unforgivable. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. It was honest. You said what you really thought. No, it was not what I really thought. It was what I thought I was supposed to think. My whole life, I have been surrounded by people who judge others based on money, status, and connections. I got caught up in that mentality, and I lost the best man I have ever known. The best man you have ever known? The one you could not introduce to your social circle. She winced. I know how that sounded. I know how horrible it was. But, Marco, I have learned so much about myself these past few months, about what really matters. Have you? Or have you learned that I am now worth $87 million? The question hung between us. Isabella's face flushed, and for the first time since she walked in, she looked genuinely flustered. That is not what this is about. Is it not? 6 months ago, you could not introduce me to your friends because my father has grease under his fingernails. Now I am a regional director at a Fortune 500 company, and suddenly you have had an epiphany about what really matters. You are being unfair, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Let me ask you a question, Isabella. If I were still living in Queens, still running a small startup, still just the son of a mechanic and a house cleaner, would you be here right now? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. We both knew the truth. I thought so, I said quietly. Marco, please. I made a mistake, a huge, terrible mistake. But people can change. I can change. Maybe you can, but some things, once broken, cannot be fixed. She was silent for a long moment, looking down at her hands. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. I love you, she whispered. I know I do not deserve another chance, but I love you. For a second, seeing her there, vulnerable and regretful, I almost felt sorry for her. I almost remembered why I fell in love with her in the first place. Then, I thought of my parents. Of my father's pride when he talked about teaching me to change oil, of my mother's joy when she showed Isabella those photo albums, of how excited they were to welcome her into our family, only to find out she thought they were beneath her standards. I know you think you do, I finally said. But you do not love me, Isabella. You love the idea of me now that I am successful enough to meet your standards. You love the status, the money, the fact that your friends would be impressed instead of critical. That is not true. If it is not true, then why did you not fight for us 6 months ago? Why did you not tell your friends to go to hell if they had a problem with my parents? Why did you not stand by me when it would have really mattered? She had no answer for that. I think you should leave, I said, not unkindly. And Isabella, please, stop texting me. We both need to move on. She stood up slowly, her composure finally breaking. What about us? What about everything we had together? What we had was real, at least for me. But it was not strong enough to survive the truth about who you really are. And that is not something that changes just because my bank account has. After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. I felt sad, but also strangely relieved. Closure, I guess. The messages stopped after that day. Isabella finally understood that there was no going back. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that she was engaged to Alessandro K., the hotelier she had started dating after our breakup. They had a lavish wedding in the Hamptons that was featured in 3 different society magazines. Looking at the pictures, Isabella looked beautiful and happy, surrounded by exactly the kind of people she always wanted to impress. I hope she is genuinely happy. Despite everything, I did not wish her ill. As for me, I continued to build the integration of Cloud Sync Dynamic. I continued to work with Yeppy, who gradually became less terrified of me and more respectful. And I continued to take care of my parents. My father's 3 auto shops were thriving, and my mother's cleaning service had expanded to include office buildings and commercial properties. Every Sunday, I still went to family dinner in Bensonhurst. The same house, the same table, the same stories about my father's customers and my mother's clients. The only difference was that now my parents did not worry about my future. They knew their son was going to be okay. And you know what? They were right. I was going to be okay. Better than okay, actually. Because I had learned something important from the whole experience with Isabella. The people who love you for who you are when you have nothing are the ones worth keeping. Everyone else is just passing through. My father still has grease under his fingernails. My mother still takes pride in making other people's homes beautiful. And I am still proud to be their son, whether I am worth 8 figures or $8. Some things, money cannot buy, and some standards, money cannot change. Isabella learned that lesson too late, but at least she learned it.